Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of Bitching about metal. And today I'm just thinking of talking about why bands should stay somewhat consistent in their sound. And I'm obviously going to talk about metal because this is Bitching about metal. But so there's a lot of bands, especially recently, that have been changing up their sound in a lot of different ways, really. Like I think one of the first things that will come to mind for a lot of metalheads is Dark Throne. So Dark Throne started off, I want to say, now I'm just brain phrasing here, but I want to say probably like the late '80s when they released their first album, The Soulside Journey. Now they probably released demos before that, but their first album, their first full length album, was The Soulside Journey, and it was a death metal record, which it was at the time pretty common because the death metal scene was exploding, and a lot of second wave black metal bands did start off as death metal. Now then they started releasing black metal, and we all know them as arguably the one maybe like now this is totally a matter of opinion here, but possibly the greatest black metal band of all time. Now I mean some people are gonna like give me shit for that, and I don't care. Like I'm not even saying that. They're one of the greatest, and you can't deny that. But lately, with the past few albums, they've kind of drifted their sound a bit. Now drifted make their sound has, let's just say, changed a lot. With some of their albums, such as Dark Thrones and Black Flags, I think it was called, and Circle the Wagons and whatnot, it was more crust punk, which was interesting. I love the album artwork. I love the mascot. And then I think it was their latest album, The Underground Resistance, where it was just classic metal. And so, like leave no cross unturned, and it's definitely not the cult black metal, like the real, true Norwegian black metal, the most hated band in the world, unholy black metal stuff that we would see on A Blaze in the Northern Sky, Panzerfaust, Transylvania Hunger, Under a Funeral Moon, and all their generally probably most well-known albums. And well, let's just say they don't sound at all like Dark Throne. Like I've shown this to people who didn't even know they changed and possibly didn't even know they were still recording. And they really found it hard to believe Dark Throne would make such a huge change. And you think about it, somebody that's been known for something like that just ups and changes their sound. I think a band, in my opinion, should have a consistency to their sound. Because like in a way they owe it to their fans who made them big. They want because their fans, you know, made them who they are. Really, without their fans, what can they do? I mean, nobody listens to their music. Nobody buys their stuff. There's no money to fuel for their endeavors. So now I'm not going to say that I'm against any change at all. I'm not one of those people that says a band should just play the same stuff their entire career. I'm not one of those people. I just think that they should have a consistent style because I mean, to me, it's when you just change your sound, you're never going to master that one sound. You're never going to perfect it. I honestly think that if you're going to just up and change your style, that would be better to a side project because one, you're gonna probably appeal to people of that genre more. Because if somebody who was into crust punk was looking for more crust punk bands, they probably wouldn't think to look at Dark Throne because their Dark Throne's mostly known for their black metal works. And really, like with if you start a side project for a certain style, you can not only advertise that as well, whatever style that is, it's easier to more master that sound and kind of like isolate it from your project so you don't mix. Like, see, with Dark Throne is that they were perfecting the art of black metal, yet it was never the same, really. It was never, no album was exactly the same. And that was really great because at the same, not only were they playing amazing black metal and really just amazing metal in general, they were perfecting the art while still changing it up to keep it interesting. And I think that when they just up and changed their sound, it was almost disappointing because the black metal scene's pretty controversial at this point, not because it's a menace to society, and which, and the whole fact that, ironically enough, the fact that it's not a menace to society is also causing controversy. It's that, like, with there are a lot of bands have just really kind of abandoned it, and that may like some band like, and I think Darkthrone's one of them, quite honestly. And Mayhem, their music's changing a lot, especially with their newest album, Esoteric Warfare. I think I'm saying that right. It may be Esoteric Warfare, which showed a change of themes from basically like the more satanic stuff they did with their older stuff to a more like, mind control, psychic warfare, which I personally thought was cool, and I still like the whole raw sound of it, but it's it's a changing landscape, and there's a lot less true black metal in the mainstream. So it feels like with all these different bands, it's sort of like black metal's becoming diluted. And I feel when you have, especially a famous band like this, that can have repercussions on the entire genre. Because Dark Throne was like, I think, inconsistency. Because Burzum did a lot of like atmospheric, and Varg was in prison. So for a long time, we just had these two atmospheric albums because Varg was on. I'm referring to Varg Vikernes, who murdered Euronymous of Mayhem and was convicted of burning down three churches. For those who don't know, but he was um, the only musical, the only instrument he was allowed access to was a synthesizer, and that was very rare that he had access to that. So for a while we only had that. So I mean, Burzum was a huge player, and that when you lose a huge player, and all they can record is two synthesizer albums for like a period of like 16 or so years, that's a huge loss in the industry. And the thing is, these huge artists are trendsetters. So it's sort of like a carving a path for bands to come and other great bands. So I feel like when they just up and change their style, they're almost abandoning the genre as a whole. And right now, it's sort of, I feel like there's sort of just an open spot because there's really no definitive black metal band at the moment. There is a lot of very popular bands, like um, Behemoth is more like black and death metal, but a lot of people hate them. I personally think they can be hit or miss. I really like their album Evangelion. I think that album was really, really well done. Some of their other stuff's not so good. And I think bands should. It's not bad for a band to change its sound over the course of its career, but I think a more general, less focused on black metal, like less specific to black metal example of this is Metallica. Metallica. Oh, sorry. Their music's terrible now. I'm sorry to say it, but it's true. It is just god awful. Like I can't even. But that was different because I'm not saying it was good, honestly. And it kind of goes into the idea that I think that when a band does a side project, there's more room for experimentation. That they can kind of isolate what sounds work and what sounds don't. Like, let's say, I mean, if Metallica had just done the whole short haired thing, but done it as a different band, then they could see how much it sucked and been like, would have been like, okay, this isn't gonna work. We'll just shove that side project, pretend like it never happened, and keep playing the good thrash metal that we've been playing. Imagine how different that would be versus the complete and utter horse crap that they're putting out today. But instead, they just decided to take a whole gamble, and really they sacrificed who they were for commercial value. And there are bands that have done that, and if it's just left a big shit stain on their career. Like Celtic Frost, for example, they decided to buy into the in the 80s. They decided to buy into the whole glam rock, fad that was going on at the time, and they recorded their album Cold Lake. They like disowned that album basically. It's like a collector's item because diehard fans who were really just trying to collect the entire discography want it. And that's a piss stain they're never gonna get off their career. I mean, all their other albums, they changed, like, they're pioneers of avant-garde metal, really. So their music's always gonna be up to debate, whether fans like it or not. But their music was, I felt, generally consistent, had that consistent sound to it. When you just change your sound altogether, you're just, it's just basically abandonment. You're giving up in a way. You're saying, hey, you know, screw this. I can't do this anymore. Like, if you can't, I think if you're running out of ideas, it's better just, it's probably time to move on then. It's not time to really change what that band's about, because I think each band should have a clear and defined identity to it. And when you mix all this stuff together, it just kind of begins to lack focus. And it splits the fans pretty bad. Nobody really likes fans being split. It's some pretty nasty arguments. I mean, let's just admit it was usually just end up in angry keyboard warriors in the YouTube comments. But I think it lacks focus, and people are going to disagree with me on that and say it's good for bands just to up and change their sound. And I'm not saying all of these bands are terrible. I'm not saying any of Darkthrone's new stuff's terrible. I think their new stuff's good. I just don't think it's classic Darkthrone. And I don't think anybody's really going to challenge me on that fact. And I really honestly wish that Fenriz had done what he did with, I think he did an ambient project called Towers of Nebula. I'm really bad with names, so don't quote me on that. But it was something with towers and something nebula, and it was an ambient project he did. And he also did one called with Satyr called Storm. And see, I just wish he had done that with his other stuff because it just, and it was different because when Metallica stopped playing thrash metal, you had Slayer, you have Anthrax, you have Megadeth, who were kind of still setting trends, and then you have all these other bands exploding up. Thrashing was huge. With black metal, I felt that it was bad because Burzum was gone, Mayhem was still black metal, just not the true black metal that they were playing it like with De Mystery Storm Satanas. And so Darkthrone were really the trendsetters, and you had all these cult black metal bands that were just following them behind and creating this huge scene. And now there's stuff like Cradle of Filth. Yeah, yeah, that's not good. So it has repercussions, especially if you're a real popular band. And I think it probably will hurt a lot of small bands because, I mean, the small band tries to get big, probably going to base it off of one sound. And if they just change that for the sake of being experimental, then, you're sacrificing the fan base you build up, you know? So, I mean, it's almost exploitive of the fans. You kind of lead them on when you're small, like, oh, yeah, we'll build up this fan base. Then you just kind of change it once they're already giving you money. But anyway, that's my views on this. Please don't hurt me. The black metal community is really terrible about that. I'm gonna get so many death threats. Please don't hurt me. Well, anyway, thanks for watching. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and just keep on listening to good music.